Good morning, everybody. Hello, hello. Happy Wednesday. I am continuing the conversation of why the exercise you're doing isn't working to get rid of your pain. So we've talked about finding the Goldilocks of exercise already. So not doing too much, not doing too little, not doing exercises that are too hard, not doing exercises that are too easy. And today I am spending the time talking about that you're only doing stretching exercises, and that's why your exercise is not helping with your pain. So often we hear our doctors saying, you need to stretch more, you need to stretch more, you need to stretch more. Just do more stretches and it will help. And I think they're using the word stretching incorrectly. So stretching is when you hold a position for a sustained amount of time to elongate a muscle, to make a muscle longer. When doctors say you need to stretch more, now I haven't had this conversation with them, so this is just my best guess. I think they really mean just move your body in some way, shape, or form. And they just don't know the terminology, so they use the word stretching, and it's incorrect. They use the word stretching to mean cardio. They use the word stretching to mean strength training. They use the word stretching to mean yoga. They use the word stretching to mean Pilates. They use the word stretching to mean CrossFit. I don't, honestly, I'm not 100% sure on this, but based on conversations I've had with physicians, they want people to exercise, but what they tell people to do is to stretch. You need to stretch more. And this is incorrect. I think people stretch more than what they should overall. So let me clarify that. Yes, there are some people that don't do anything and they need to stretch. They also need to strengthen. They also need to do cardio, meaning like endurance exercises. So actually, I shouldn't even say that, because endurance could be cardiovascular endurance or it could be muscular endurance. So I will break that up. People should stretch, people should do endurance training, they should do strength training, they should do cardiovascular training. And stretching too much isn't doing you any favors. Like I said, stretching is holding a position for a prolonged amount of time to elongate a muscle. Does stretching help tight muscles? Yes. But we don't know if tight muscles is your problem. Sorry, you guys might be able to hear Levi. He's not happy with the road work they're doing in our neighborhood. They are chiseling out parts of cement. Sorry if you can hear him. Anyway, so stretching. We need movement every day. I highly recommend everybody move their bodies in a purposeful manner every single day. It gets you moving, literally gets your joints moving, gets your muscles moving, gets your heart pumping, gets your circulation going. Any swelling that's caught in joints can now be flushed out because we've brought more circulation to the area to bring good nutrients in, take out the toxins, and then they leave our body. And doctors saying, just stretch, just stretch, just stretch, just it doesn't help. For somebody who's been stretching for years, it doesn't help your pain if your pain is not from a tight muscle. And we don't know if your problem is from a tight muscle. So might as well just do an all-encompassing exercise program. So strength training, endurance training, muscular endurance training, cardiovascular endurance training, and stretching. I stretch every day because it helps me not feel so tight, and it helps me prevent my muscles from being too sore. I also do strength training multiple days per week. Right now, I'm doing 3 days a week. There are some times during the year where I'm doing 5 days a week. There are other times of the year where I'm doing 7 days a week. It all depends on what I feel like my body needs in that time frame. So when I am ramping up my running again, I do strength training 3 days a week. When I'm not doing so much running and I have the time and the energy, I'm doing strength training almost 7 days a week. I am always stretching because I walk every day and I stretch after every single walk. I stretch after every single run, and I stretch after every single strength training program I do. So one of the best examples I can give, I'll give two examples, one for the knee and one for the back. So we often hear that, people who have back pain should stretch because their muscles are tight and cramped up, so they should stretch. No. I mean, yes, you need to stretch, but you don't only stretch. You also need to incorporate strength training. And so one of the muscles in your back that often causes people problems is called the quadratus lumborum, QL for short. It is in your back. I'll stand up here. Let's see if my background doesn't annoy it. In your back through here. You have one on either side of your body. It's part of your core. It helps hold your body upright. It also helps bring you from a side bent upward position. It helps stabilize your spine when you're doing other motions, when you're squatting, when you lean forward to pick something up. And it can go into spasm. And you know why it spasms? It spasms because it's not strong enough to do the task you're asking it to do. So if you only stretch it out because it's a spasmed muscle, a tight muscle feels like a big old muscle knot. If you only stretch it out, yes, it will help make it feel better, but it won't prevent the problem from coming back. It won't fully resolve that problem because of the reason that it caused the problem in the first place. It wasn't strong enough to do the task you were asking it to do. So if you only stretch out your back and you don't strengthen, then when you go to pick something up again, you're going to have the same problem. And then your doctor's going to say, well, you shouldn't be lifting heavy things from the floor. And that's a whole other story, conversation, because I don't believe that. We should be able to pick things up from the floor. We just need to be strong enough to do it. So that's one example of why only stretching isn't going to get you anywhere. Another example is the hamstrings. So a lot of people feel like their hamstrings are grabbing them all of the time. Their hamstrings are so tight. They have short hamstrings. They need to stretch them out and make them feel better. Sure. But why are your hamstrings tight in the first place? Unless you have some kind of anomaly where you were born with literally short hamstrings, you probably don't actually have short hamstrings. You have tight hamstrings because they cramp up and they spasm when you're asking them to do too much than what they're capable of doing. I mentioned yesterday, we strengthen in the direction that we go. We're moving forward all of the time. We're strengthening the front of our body all of the time. When do you strengthen your hamstrings? Unless you're doing specific strength training exercises for the hamstrings, like a deadlift, like a Romanian deadlift, like ham curls, some squats, some lunges. Those also work other muscles, so they're not targeted. If you're not incorporating strength training exercises, your hamstring is always going to be on fire because it's never getting stronger. You can stretch until the cows come home, but if you're not incorporating that strength training, your hamstrings are never going to be good enough to do the task that you're asking them to do. Your hamstrings are involved in so much. Your hamstrings are involved when you bend forward and pick something up from the ground. Just like I used that last example for the QL. Well, your hamstrings do that motion. I told you the deadlift, that's That's a hamstring exercise. What does it look like when you go to pick something up off the ground, a box off the ground? That looks like a deadlift, because it is a deadlift. So if you're not strengthening your hamstrings, they're always going to be on fire. They're always going to be tight because they start to tighten up. They start to contract when they try to do the thing, going upstairs, picking up something from the floor, getting out of bed. When you go to do those things and it cramps up and grabs you, it's because it wasn't strong enough to do the thing in the moment. Either your body wasn't prepped for it and wasn't ready for it, or it just flat out wasn't strong enough. So if you stretch, do a hamstring stretch all of the time, not going to do anything for you. Okay, so we can't just stretch. We need to incorporate strengthening at the same time. I'll leave you with this. Think about children. Think about babies. When they first are learning to do something, they're all over the place, right? Let's talk about a baby who's learning how to walk. They stumble a little bit, and then they get better. And then they play around a little bit, and then they stop. So they're constantly testing the waters. They're not stretching all of the time. They're mainly strengthening. Of course, they're stretching a little bit because their bodies are so loosey-goosey and flexible. But they're constantly strength training their bodies in the form of play. When they go to practice walking, they practice standing up first. They're doing some squats. And then they're practicing a few steps, and then they fall down. And then the next day, maybe they do a couple more steps, and they fall down. They're cruising along the coffee table. I almost said counter. They're not tall enough for the counter. Cruising around the coffee table. They're constantly strength training, and then incorporating a little bit of stretching when they're reaching for things and doing stuff. But that's how they get stronger. They play. We don't have that luxury because we already know how to do the thing. We just need to add it in more often throughout the day. So anyway, that was a little bit of a tangent ending with that, but that's okay. So only stretching will not alleviate your pain completely if it's not a pure tightness, inflexibility problem. Okay, and most of the people in this group, it's not a pure flexibility problem. Unless you were in a cast for, however long, 6 weeks. Let's say you break your elbow and you're stuck in a cast for 6 weeks because you broke your elbow. Well, then when you come out of the cast, your arm's going to be locked in that 90-degree position. And it might still hurt a little bit. Probably not, because the fracture is healed. And then you need to stretch it to make it not locked in that position anymore. But most people who have a chronic problem, it's not because they just broke a bone and were in a cast for 6 weeks. That's literally the definition of an acute problem. It only happened for a short amount of time. Somebody who's been having knee problems, hamstring problems, back problems for years and years and years, stretching only is not going to fix it. So send me your comments and questions. I would love to answer them. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.